The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Chelsea Lambert, and I will be teaching the webinar this afternoon on how to hire, train, and leverage virtual assistants to get more done. For everyone that's joining us, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're busy because you're attending something to try and get more work off of your plates. And two, I encourage you to ask questions along the way. If I can interject and answer them as we go, I will. If not, then I will address them at the end, and might also reach out to a couple of you personally if the conversation is larger than what we'll be able to cover during today's allotted time. So this session came about because if you're not familiar with how to manage a small law firm, we provide a growth program for small law firms where we supply lawyers with an outside managing partner, CEO, CFO, or sometimes a combination of all of those to rapidly grow their law firms. And so this past week, we had our live quarterly meeting. Our members come together 4 times a year in person to focus on one area of law firm management, and this past week's topic was staffing. So one of the situations that kept coming up was delegation and empowering staff and getting things off of your plate. And we're going to talk about the reasons why it's really important to assess where you're spending your time and where you can be better leveraging your own personal efforts. In which case, spending time doing mundane tasks, filing, reporting, anything that you're doing on a recurring basis that can be delegated to a virtual assistant or a virtual service of some kind can be really, really helpful and contribute to the growth of your business as a whole. So that's what we're going to dive into today. I, just so you know, have a little bit of personal history with this subject because I have struggled with delegation my entire professional career. I was a business owner and entrepreneur, a business owner again, which is a very exciting thing for me. But along the way, had a lot of failures. And those failures really stemmed from strangleholding my business or strangleholding myself and my own abilities by not delegating. And so recently I've really adopted and gone all in using a virtual assistant service and have been able to proudly say that now I outsource or delegate to a 100% virtual service about 15 hours a week of administrative duties off my plate. And sometimes it's even higher than that. I've leveraged it so much that now I have also provided this to a couple of my team members, which one of them is in his early 20s. And so for someone who's in their early 20s to say that they have a personal assistant has been like a really cool recruiting tool, because the other people who hear about that now are intrigued and want to learn more about what he does and the type of company we are. And so it has all kinds of benefits. So let's dive right in. And we're going to go ahead and start with just kind of what is a virtual assistant. So I personally use a service that has US-based assistants that can actually make calls for me. So virtual assistants by definition is help that is provided online, by phone, over email, instant message, and extends the reach of your ability to get things done without them having to sit in your office. And so for the sake of today's presentations, because the majority, actually all of our listeners are legal professionals, this can also include resources such as virtual paralegals, bookkeepers. And what we're going to focus on today is how to make those relationships most effective. Because I will tell you, I have a lot of experience in this area, and when I first started, it was a frustrating thing, and you may have encountered the same frustrations where you have a level of expectation. The level of expectation is typically how you feel when someone is sitting next to you. So you turn to them, you ask them to do something, and it gets done. virtual assistants can deliver that same type of effectiveness and that same quality of work, but you have to manage the process a little bit differently. So I'm going to give you some tips and guidance and ways to actually submit requests. I'm going to show you real-world examples of how I use my virtual assistant service, some of which might surprise you. So what are some skills that a virtual assistant or virtual assistant service might be able to do for you? Now, so many times when I talk about this topic, people assume that it's very menial, mundane, low-level tasks like filing or spreadsheets or, anything that you would really consider to be, like an entry-level job position. But what I want you to expand your view of virtual assistant services or freelance services to be today is a whole world of talent that is now available. The rise of the internet and the desire for people to work remotely and live wherever they want in the world has now opened our talent pool up and grown it in such a way that I can actually get a very skilled internet marketer or social media manager or someone who writes incredible copy, even things like helping out with human resources for onboarding employees, project management for short, one-time tasks like rebuilding a website. If you're moving, helping you actually execute the move. I will tell you there's one thing that I cannot stand, and that's like soliciting quotes for everything under the sun when you go through a move from like, okay, we need to move the phone system. We need to find movers. I have to get somebody to come in and clean the windows. We're going to need a new janitorial service. These are all things that have to get done. And what I also want you to think about if you are not personally doing these tasks is how that's impacting your support staff, because you're paying them as well. And just to do a quick cost-benefit analysis, which we will go into as far as attorney fees are concerned later on in today's presentation. But for your support staff, think about how, and the service I'll give you an example of is, let's just say $30 a month for 6 requests. And we'll go into what a request is defined as later. But 6 requests. So if you're paying this person $15, $20, $30 an hour, or even $10 an hour, and they have a tool at their disposal where they can actually get things done, does it make sense for them to spend a half a day researching where you're going to order your holiday cards from, or does it make sense for them to assign a one-time task that actually costs you about $6? So just cost-benefit analysis on that, and you'll actually save money by using one of these services by providing it to your support staff. And quite honestly, it makes the employee feel empowered and that you're investing in them, and so there's just a lot of other areas of your business that this can be applied to, not just your own day-to-day time. So then research, including legal research, secretarial and telephone services, transcriptions, website development, maintenance, drafting initial documents, writing, editing, and proofreading. So all manner of jobs and industries can be found through some of the services that we're going to go through today. And so this is just kind of a really great image of all of the different things that they can do. Going back to the list that I just walked through verbally, travel planning, maybe you really have no problem cranking out a blog post, or maybe you have an idea for a blog post and you just want a few bullet points of research to help get it started. These are just a few of the areas that the services that I will walk you through today openly provide. I have yet to find a task to send to them that they have come back and told me that they will not do. So finding ways to increase your marketing effectiveness by creating new content, or having a copywriter review it and make improvements. Maybe you've had an email campaign or a newsletter or some type of sales material that you have had for a few years and it just needs an update. And how many times have you put off actually getting that done? So people will ask me, well, what kinds of things do you delegate to your virtual assistant? And I tell them one of my key indicators that I need to delegate it is that I constantly am putting it off, right? So I used to be notorious for taking forever to compile receipts and track expenses because it was just such a tedious task. And I honestly, it was easier for me to put it off than, put in the work and actually get, money back. And so on along those lines, finally just scanning the receipts and having them build an expense report spreadsheet or send receipts to an accountant is something that they can handle if you find yourself like anything on your desk where there's stacks of paper or something that you haven't done or something that you continually tell yourself, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. It's better to have them get started than for it to not get done at all. And again, coming back to just kind of a rule of delegation, there are rarely cases where getting at 80% as good as you would have done it yourself as opposed to zero of it being done by putting it off because you're strangle holding that particular task because you believe that you have to initiate it, start it, and finish it and see it all the way through. So these are just a few ideas for you. So then how to effectively use virtual assistant services. And so I came up in preparation with for today's session, I really boiled it down to these 3 C's: clarity, consistency, and communication. And these are things that I have learned working with my virtual assistant service. I started on a package that was 6 requests a month, and now I'm on their highest tier before you go to an enterprise level at 50 requests a month. So I, on a really, really busy day, like during our live quarterly meeting where there was everything from making dinner reservations for a team dinner to merging content into PowerPoints for half of our speakers and minutia of other little tasks, plus, writing job descriptions and all other manner of things that I need to get done on, just a daily basis so that the business keeps moving forward regardless of where I might be in the country speaking or what event we have going on for our members, that everything that I need to do on a daily basis continues to move forward, are these 3 points. The clarity comes in with as clear as you can write a task, which if you were a member of How to Manage a Small Law Firm, we talk a lot about having policies and procedures. Delegating to a virtual assistant is an excellent exercise in writing a policy or procedure. And then once you write it, you can assign it to them as a recurring task, such as pulling your marketing reports or your financial reports for every single week or every single month so that you are just presented with that information instead of having to go look for it. Clarity. So writing out directions as clear as you possibly can. Consistency. So consistently using them for the same tasks so that they actually get better at it. And then communication goes hand in hand with the consistency part of providing feedback. When I first started using a virtual assistant service, I found that it was very difficult for me I wasn't patient, right? So the communication piece really, really helped me get the most out of the service because I have referred friends, and someone had asked which service I use. The service that I'm discussing right now is Fancy Hands. I'm going to go through a few different options. I actually use 3 different services, and this is not just a lawyer disclaimer. This is not a direct recommendation by How to Manage a Small Law Firm. I'm teaching today based on my experience with this particular service because I found that it works for me. The communication is critical, right? So we're paying $199 a month for me to basically have an executive assistant that doesn't sit next to me. And they do so much more for me than I ever would have imagined, but that's because of the communication. When I first started using a virtual assistant service, it was a couple of years ago. I owned a business and I was overwhelmed and I needed help with little things like invoicing and following up, and scheduling things on my calendar. And so I use a service called Fancy Hands. And when I first started using them and when I recommended them to other people, I found that what a lot of people do, including myself in the beginning, was I would submit my request and I wouldn't give a lot of detail and I would just magically expect it to be done. And I would just magically think that they were going to be able to read my mind and know exactly what I wanted and it was going to be done in 15 minutes. And that is not the case. So what I have developed since then is kind of this approach. To make communication my priority, create shared records such as Google Documents or Google folders, reward them with thank yous and appreciation when they've really gone out of their way and knocked it out of the park, share my expectations, including a due date, and then build a rapport with the service. So oftentimes, it's a rotation. So I don't get the same virtual assistant over and over again. I use Fancy Hands as a network of virtual assistants all over the world, which I will tell you sometimes I'm submitting requests at 11 p.m. I'll get to the end of my day or I'll come home, from traveling and there's just a stack of things that need to get done or a stack of resumes where I need to have them schedule interviews for me. I'll open up my dashboard or I even have the ability to forward right from my email to requests@fancyhands.com. And what they will do is it's integrated with my calendar, and by the next morning, they've already reached out to all of those people whose resumes I forwarded. They've scheduled, suggested times because it is a rotation, and they are going to assign that task to the first person who is working, located in all the time zones across America, and then now they even have international, so they're available sometimes at night for some limited things. Obviously not if you're going to be calling somewhere, but setting my expectation of when I need it to be completed, what I am expecting in return. Do I need this back in a Word document? Do I want you to create a PowerPoint file? Do I need this to live online so that I can share it with other people? And those are just some of the details that you can include in the request itself. And so some of the surprise benefits that I've noticed from delegating to a service like this is that it forces me to actually break down tasks and projects. And so I had a little bit of a rude awakening at the end of the year. We have regular meetings on our leadership team of all of our priorities, and I just joined How to Manage in the fall of last year, and so there's a ton of projects and work and goals that we have, and we're refreshing a lot of our properties and our look and feel of our materials and our website, all kinds of things. So what it forced me to do was outline in an Excel sheet everything. Literally was a brain dump of everything in my head, everything I wanted to do, everything, if I had a wish list and a team of 12 people, what we would be working on. And then I added a column next to each of the to-dos as to what was holding me back. So what was the reason why a certain project wasn't moving forward or a certain task wasn't getting done. And when I realized that a lot of that was either I didn't have a resource for a particular job or that it was just something that I absolutely had to touch, I noticed that a lot of it could be delegated to a virtual assistant, which is when I upgraded my package to a higher level. So it breaks down the tasks and then breaks the stranglehold of refusing to delegate. So if you haven't done that where you dump your to-dos into an Excel sheet and then to the right you add a column for what's stopping you or why you haven't actually gotten it done, you'll notice that there are areas where you can delegate to a virtual assistant service or a freelancer. And I'm going to get into the use of freelancers because they're also a form of virtual assistants here in just a minute. And then what's really cool is that it adds fuel to the business growth machine, right? So for our How to Manage a Small Law Firm members, you have a goal set for the 18 months out, or 12 months out, or 6 months out, or even, just as we outlined in this last meeting, the next 90 days, right? And so we're plowing towards that goal. And the more things that you can get off of your plate, the more time and clarity you will have. I will tell you, after the first week of having the full-fledged virtual assistant service, my mind was so much clearer because I wasn't running around chasing all these little tasks, and I didn't have a legal pad next to me with 100 things on it that I needed to get done. And it also didn't allow me to hide out in the details, right? So for the first time, I actually had to focus on the big picture items, and I had reporting in front of me because I didn't actually have to go get the report myself, and all manner of other benefits just into my mental state. I remember turning to our president, Christopher Anderson, after a couple days in the first 48 hours, and I looked at him and I said, I just took 10 hours of administrative work off my plate a week. And just saying that out loud, it was such a relief to me, and let me move what my team was waiting on me for so much faster. So, tips for delegating a request electronically, because you have to remember you're not always going to be on the phone with this person. First and foremost, explain the task. So, clarity. Explain it in as great of detail as you possibly can, step by step. And this is actually a great example of how to write a policy or procedure so that you can give it to someone in the event that you ever do hire full-time for a particular role. 2, set a due date. I need this to be done by. If you do not have a due date, they will not prioritize it accordingly. I cannot stress that enough. 3, give step-by-step instructions. It is a fact that and I use it in emails, so if you ever get an email from me and there's a numbered list, you'll know why. This is a really interesting thing. So when you use bullet points in an email, people will usually not take action. But if you use a list with numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of a sudden it's leveled, it's a level up in how serious it is. So it's just really interesting. I've noticed there's a psychological difference there of bullets versus numbers. So give step-by-step instructions. First, I need this to be completed. Next, I need it to be added to this spreadsheet. And a note on spreadsheets, you're going to see in a couple of the examples that I share in a few minutes, is that I will actually say, if I need you to create an Excel document, these are the columns that I need it to have. And then 4, if you can anticipate a question, answer it ahead of time. And so I don't know if anybody else on the call today has this, but I very much have a intuition of sorts for when I explain something to someone, or when you answer an email or give someone directions. I just have this thing where I'm like, you know what, they're going to ask. They're going to ask about this one thing. And if I don't explain it right now, then I'm going to be busy doing something else later. I could be on a plane. I could be in transit to a workshop. I could be teaching for the next 8 hours and totally unavailable, and that task will sit there until I answer it. And so if you anticipate that they're going to ask a question, anticipate that they're going to need an example file, anticipate that any little one tiny piece of information is going to help them be more successful in completing this for you, just go ahead and attach it. It's better to include more information up front than it is to wait for them to come and ask you, because you may or may not be available later. And then that also dovetails into number 5, which is be responsive. So the service that I use actually has a status in the web dashboard and in the app when it says needs response. So they notify you right away if they need you to answer something in order to finish. Now mine are typically, hey, this is going to take longer than just one task, do we have approval to use another one, in which case I can just email or in the app answer, go ahead and I approve the next task, or yes, I need this in CSV instead of just a regular Excel, document, or some type of piece of information, small piece of information I forgot or did include in the first step. And then lastly, provide links to documents or files. So again, going back to, if you know that they are going to ask for something, just include it right away. Don't wait for them to ask you. So a few more tips on just delegation. So break big tasks down into smaller pieces. Get your to-do list out of your head and in writing. And that was really a critical moment for me. So my Excel sheet of my to-do list for just the current month and then the 30 days following was about 115 line items long. So not a short list at all. But what I found was about 30 to 40% of those could be started. Maybe not finished, but could be started with the use of a freelancer or virtual assistant service. So once I had that kind of visibility and looked at all of the other really cool things on that list that I didn't have time to do until I got those little things out of the way, motivated me to really make this jump and start leveraging virtual assistant services. And then knock out the big stuff. So if you've been procrastinating, just like I mentioned earlier, if you find yourself constantly putting off a task, then that is something that you should be delegating to a freelancer, virtual assistant service, part-time paralegal, and we're going to go into all manner of services that are available to you, and then weed out time killers. So this is a great one. Second column on the right. I want you to pay attention to the weed out time killers and automate recurring events. Okay, so I have been a VP of marketing for quite some time now, and it's just my nature that I'll go pull reports myself, right? So I know exactly where to go. It doesn't take me very long. I can rationalize this 10 ways from Sunday. I know how to do it. And I also have a hard time, asking support staff like, oh, hey, well, would you get all these reports for me and deliver them to me in an email, and while you're at it, make me a coffee, and I like cream and sugar. Like I have a hard time with it historically to this day. So what I have done is now I have recurring tasks set up in my virtual assistant services dashboard where every single week they know, and they have a separate login that does not have access to actually create anything. It's an administrative login, which any good software, even if you're using something like Constant Contact, you create an additional user. They go in, they screenshot the dashboard for me, they pull all of the reports, they can even put them in a PowerPoint, like let's say I have a management meeting, which I do once a month. They will put them in a PowerPoint for me so that I am prepared for my meeting. I can look at the data from a advisory perspective, and instead of spending 20 or 30 minutes out of my day going and pulling reports, just because you know how to do something and it's easy for you and you think it's going to take 5 minutes, where are you stealing that 5 minutes from? And would that 5 minutes be more useful if you were using your intelligence, expertise, and knowledge to analyze the data instead of going and finding it for yourself in the first place? So I really, really latched on to that one particular feature, and now they know exactly what they need to deliver to me on a weekly basis. So next, we're going to talk about examples. So I'm just going to kind of give you some anecdotal stories of how I've been able to leverage these services. First example, I've moved a lot in the last few years within the city of Chicago, but I've had 4 different addresses in the last, I think, like 2.5 years, right? I also got TSA PreCheck. So as a frequent traveler, my travel accounts were completely, haphazardly managed. I didn't know how many points I had with one airline. Nothing was connected to my TripIt account. I needed to reset passwords. This is something that is so tedious, kind of goes back to that moving discussion. So I assigned, one of the first tasks I assigned to them was go update all of my travel accounts, connect it to my TripIt Pro account, and then make sure my TSA number is updated everywhere. And some people would say like, oh, well, this is like confidential information. Yes, it is. They are contracted to work for me, and they are also, I have the ability to change all my passwords, right? So I gave them a generic login. They went, they added my information everywhere, and then when they were done, I changed the password, which if you're not using a password manager, LastPass is a really, really easy, fast way to do that. You can change passwords like at the drop of a dime for multiple websites without a ton of effort. So I had them go and do that. That would have taken me probably 2.5 months of trying to find 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there and getting distracted, and the phone rings and everything else. And so within the same day, I want to say it was within 2 hours, all of my accounts were updated, email addresses corrected, physical addresses corrected, points tracking linked to my TripIt Pro account. It was beautiful. It was something that was such an administrative headache for me. I had literally put off doing it for almost 6 months. And it was costing me time. Like, things were not updated. My boarding passes would be sent to me without my pre-check number. I'd have to go to the counter. I mean, it was literally stealing time for me. So that was one of the most powerful tasks that I used right out of the gate that really, gave me a wake-up call. So finding quotes for movers' phone systems, calling your cell phone provider and finding out if there is a better, or doing comparisons between 2 cell phone providers. Like, nobody likes to get on the phone with phone providers. I will also tell you, for any Comcast customers, they handle Comcast calls. That's life-changing. So anything that you don't want to do or don't want to deal with, I would encourage you to use a virtual assistant for, because they can also hot transfer that call to you. You can use these for personal requests as well. I was on a girls trip, and we were looking for a spa appointment the same day. I will tell you, it is not easy to find a spa appointment for 8 women at the same time 2 hours before you want to go. And they called every spa in the Austin, Texas area until they found one that would take us, and hot transferred me to the manager, where they had also negotiated a price discount. So that was, I looked like the rock star on that trip, and all of my girlfriends on that trip now call me Fancy Pants because of it. So it's kind of a very, very funny personal story of how you can use that as well. So little things, dinner reservations, that kind of stuff. Do phone screeners and scheduled interviews. So if you are a How to Manage a Small Law Firm member, you know that growth and recruiting is something that you are probably facing depending upon which stage of revenue growth you're in or moving to. So we're hiring at How to Manage, and for our candidates, I received, just to kind of give you an example, we're looking for a graphic designer and a copywriter, and building out our creative team so that we can do more marketing and offer more resources to our members. So I am forwarding the candidates to my virtual assistant service. They have a phone screener where they go through 3 questions. They ask them and just take down the answers. These are very, very simple. Are you proficient in this particular software? What's your favorite campaign or task that you've ever worked on? Little things like that. They document those phone screeners, and then they schedule a follow-up interview for me on my calendar. So all I have to do is show up. I have the preliminary information on this candidate, and I've probably shaved about an hour and a half's worth of work on my side just getting that first part done. Entering receipts, spreadsheets, and reporting. Very mundane, menial tasks that you shouldn't be spending your time on, quite frankly, because you are robbing your law firm of money. And if you have not seen this formula, or your managing partner or COO, or you haven't seen any of our workbook materials, if you're not a How to Manage member, when you do tasks that are not at your skill level and expertise level and responsibility under your list of responsibilities as a owner of a law firm or legal business. You are robbing your business of money. It is that simple. So if you're doing jobs that are $10, $20, $30 an hour jobs that can be outsourced, and your billable rate is $200, $300, you are robbing your firm of $275 an hour. Just plain and simple math. So that also applies to weekly recurring tasks. Writing marketing material. So if you have a campaign, whether that's email, print, advertising, or otherwise, you can actually have them get started and write that material for you. And I use this to actually give me a jump start. So what you see in the marketplace, I have reviewed, I have polished, I have corrected. But that does not ever stop me from assigning a list of documents, whether it's an email campaign. I'm going to give you examples of a few that I've done with this service. And then when it gets to me, I have the structure already. So getting it started is oftentimes harder than finishing it, right? Finding the time to actually sit down and get it going, as opposed to it appearing in your inbox and all you have to do is make it better. So that also applies to updating your website. Maybe it's easy for you to write the new material for your website, or polish something that's already started. They can log in to WordPress or any other basic website tool and actually update the content. Same goes for posting blog posts, writing presentations, which I'll share a little secret with you at the end of today's session, and then shutting down accounts you no longer need. I'm going to touch on number 11 because it's really important. Shutting down accounts you no longer need. So think about that recurring expense that keeps hitting the business card, or a service that you thought you would use but just haven't gotten around to it for how to manage. We were testing 2 different email systems. We decided to go with one over the other. There is a rigorous and annoying cancellation process for the service that we were using first. I hated it. Every time you had to get somebody on the phone, I made 2 attempts to cancel, still didn't get it done. I assigned it to the virtual assistant. They were diligent in getting the account canceled and had it done within a day. So that not only saved me a ton of time, but actually paid for the virtual assistant service for the entire month, because we were no longer paying for that recurring expense. And we did have a quick question. So what are you using as a primary overview tool for all project management? So each of these services will typically come with its own project management system. I'm going to show you an example of mine here in a little bit. If you're looking for a simple project management tool, you can use something like a case management software, or a very simple tool called Trello. And I'm just going to chat that to everybody. And again, these are tools that I've used personally. This is not a direct recommendation from how to manage, just kind of sharing as we go here. So next, one more reminder, anything that you find yourself putting off or hate doing is something that you should try to send to a virtual assistant. All right, so now let's go through some examples, and this is the really exciting part for me. The chart that you see on the right-hand side are the stats from my account. They have placed 115 calls for me. They have sent 23 emails, and that's across 78 requests. They've scheduled 14 appointments on my calendar, and they saved me 2.5 hours on the phone. I have 9 requests left for the month, and this comes from a service called Fancy Hands. I'm using them as my primary example today. I have a couple more for you, but I just wanted everybody to see how many hours would you save just in your day? Because keep in mind that 115 calls is not 115 hours, but it's probably 115 hours when you think about the time that it takes you to stop, find the phone number, go to a quiet place, find time in your car, insert example here of, just having to take time away from what you were doing and interrupt your daily path of productivity so that you can actually go make that call and do that. And then on the left, this is an example of a request that actually we used for our support staff. So around the holidays, we were looking for, we needed to get thank you cards printed for a project. And I went in and notice I want you to pay attention to this top section. So please research executive thank you cards that look beautiful and professional. We need the front to say thank you from the team, and then we need our logo on the front or back somewhere. We'd like nice paper quality, and our wish list item is vertical orientation. So again, coming back to the clarity on this one. Underneath, here's their response. I provided two options from overnightprints.com or Papyrus. We ended up, I believe, going with the Papyrus option, but I can't imagine like how many websites, and even if you're paying somebody $10 or $12 an hour, they're going to spend half their day surfing the internet, shopping essentially, looking for thank you cards when you can assign it to someone who's probably done this 50 times and can get it, back to you within, I'm pretty sure this was completed within like an hour or two. So from that perspective, it takes less time for someone who's done this for a million other people and probably has a library of options or knows exactly where to go than for your support staff member to waste half their day and look for an excuse to shop online because they're looking for the perfect thank you card and they don't want to upset you. And so they're going to spend a week dragging this out looking for it when it can get done in an hour. And someone had asked just quickly whether or not today's presentation will be able to be shared, and it will be able to be shared. We are recording this, and this will be available at a later date. Okay, so moving on to the next one. So the next task is track down all of my rental car receipts. So it's tax season, and how many of us have kept all of our receipts and all of our expenses diligently organized for the entire year? Everybody on the call, right? So what I actually had them do was go in, here's my accounts, and these are discount codes. So if anybody wants to use these discount codes and give me points, knock yourself out. But these are discount codes that are associated with an ID. I had them go into all of my travel accounts and pull receipts, PDF them, drop them into folders, organize them. And so now going into accounting season, I will tell you I am 100 times more prepared for this year's filing than I have ever been in the past, because it's as simple as me sending an email, forwarding a receipt saying file this in this particular folder, turn this into a PDF. Otherwise that stuff gets buried in my email, and I'll spend a very frantic, 2 weeks trying to dig up everything. My accountant is asking me for stuff. I'm frustrated. I don't, at the end of the year, there's no way for me to go back and find everything. So go back for the last 6 months and get me everything that I need. And then all of a sudden it magically appears. It's wonderful. So if any of you, I know we had a couple members come out. Thank you so much for joining us in Atlanta. I was preparing for a trip. I had a full schedule Monday, a full schedule Tuesday. I was getting on a plane on Wednesday, and we needed to promote a meetup for cocktails that we were having with our members while I was going to be in town. So not only did I have them find a restaurant near my hotel, but then I also asked them to write me a meetup description. So again, going back to that clarity, find me a place near my hotel, write me a description, this is what time I want it to be, and then here's the description that they put together. Did I make changes to this? Yes. Did I use it exactly? No. Did it get done? Absolutely. So that's really what we're looking for, is that like 80% in my hands so that I can finish it and make it perfect. Because if I spend the time making it perfect, it's never going to get done. And then notice at the bottom, rate this request to get even better assistance. So it's on a scale of 1 to 5. I almost always give, a 5 or a 4, but what's important here too is that they give you the ability to make comments. So when I've given a 3 or a 2, I say, it's because you guys took too long, or when I asked for this, this piece wasn't included, and so you train them, and they know. They have a database. They want you to be happy because you're going to refer other people. This was one of my particular favorites. So I am using this as an example because I want you to see how you can leverage this to build referral partnerships. Referrals, especially for our members that are in the $0 to $250,000 a year revenue stage, a stage that we all create, where we're helping you break that $250,000 revenue, annual revenue year barrier. One of your most important assets is your referral network, and as well as your time. So having a virtual assistant service reach out to, and how cool is it going to be when they get a phone call that says, oh, this attorney would like to have coffee with you, or, oh, they were wondering if, you have some time and they could stop by and learn about your business. So if you have a list, if you've done the Team 100, and if you are interested in what the Team 100 is and you're not a How to Manage a Small Law Firm member, Team 100 is your building a referral network that literally creates a stream of revenue for you. So what I was doing is I was actually traveling overseas, and I wanted to connect with attorneys while I was there. And so what I asked them to do was find small law firms near my hotel, notice the numbered list, contact them and ask them if they would be willing to do an interview, schedule the interviews for a certain time before I was leaving. And so they went out and found law firms, and a couple I connected with while I was there, and then a couple I was able to Skype with after I got back. And so that was something that was really, really cool, and really kind of rounded out my experience while I was there, because I do like to learn about the local legal system in areas that I visit and travel really frequently. So using this as an opportunity to connect with other referral sources, to build your referral network, to learn the landscape of businesses around you, find complementary practice area attorneys to network with. You can use them to set up those meetings, because if you're not finding the time to do it yourself, assign it to someone else so that it gets done. Another example, if you are looking for material for social media, you can also have them create content for you. So compile a list of 30 inspiring quotes about business, positive mindset, ignoring negativity, and going after your dreams. Compile into an Excel spreadsheet. So once they came back to me with these quotes, then I went in, I picked the ones that I liked, I came back to them and said, this group is awesome, go find me 30 more like this. And we can turn that into social media material, we can use it in marketing copy, we can do all kinds of things. So, and they also cited where they actually got this from. So I have the ability to see what the source was, to also, give credit to the quote providers, and have that list of resources for later. And the list goes on. So this is actually a screenshot of my dashboard. So please use these backgrounds to create PowerPoint presentations. Schedule a phone interview with this person. Schedule a phone interview with this graphic designer. Please write me a description of a copywriter. Please write me a job ad for a marketing manager. Find me please help me prepare the attached 2 versions. Please also help me find some personal things that I needed to do, so making sure that all of those are getting done. Now let's get into the breakdown of what it's actually saving you. So a full-time admin versus a virtual assistant, and I'm looking at all of our solos on our call today. If you are a solo and you are saying, oh, I need to hire one, but I'm just not ready, to pull the trigger and spend the money, a full-fledged virtual assistant that you are paying versus a full-time admin, you're looking at a massive cost savings here. So office space and equipment, taxes, employee benefits, the hourly rate, the space and the equipment, all kinds of things that go along with hiring a full-time employee, especially when you're just getting started, really, really impact, not to mention your time training them and everything else that goes along with it. I've had people even justify getting interns and changing them out every 6 months so that you get people who are familiar with technology that come into your business, but they don't account for the time that they have to retrain those employees every 6 months, and also the fact that not a lot of them work out. This is how many hours you have to work with. And really thinking about how many of those hours are going where will determine the type of virtual assistant service that you are going to need to hire. And so let's get into that. Let's get into who to hire and when. And we recommend this book on, in so many of our sessions and on so many of our calls. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend it. It's also available on Audible, so you can experience the book instead of, read it page by page. So the real tragedy is that when the technician falls prey to the fatal assumption that the business was supposed to free him from the limitations of working for somebody else, but actually enslaves him. And so that's what we find with so many of our attorneys that we work with when we are starting with them. It's the doctrine of sacrifice. It's the, I have to be working 100 hours a week in order to justify taking home, this paycheck or to feel like I'm building my business. Like, that is not true. If you've read the 4-Hour Work Week, again, another great example of how delegation actually empowers you to be a better business owner and to provide jobs for others through your success. So finishing a task is easier than finding the time to start it. This is my personal mantra, something that I think about every single time I delegate, and a resource that travels with me everywhere are virtual assistants and then freelancers. So let's get into actually how this works. So this is a screenshot of, I use a service called Fancy Hands. I'm going to show you their website here in a second. This is a live map that they have on their website of the virtual assistants, where they are in the world and who's online. And this map will change throughout the day. So if I log on late at night, you'll notice that a concentration of the virtual assistants, this was taken early in the morning, were on the West Coast because it's just Pacific time zone, right? So more virtual assistants are able to come online later in the day because that's when they're working. It's an international map, so you'll even see for their international clients, and depending upon the type of work, they might give a spreadsheet to somebody in London. Does it get done? Yes. Is it accurate? Yes. Do I care where they are? Not at all. So this is where you can go to learn more about the service that I personally use. I'm going to take you through a few other examples for more high-level things like paralegals, marketers, graphic designers, and other resources next. So fancyhands.com is the one that I've been talking about. Upwork. So this is a great example of where you can get, I had a discussion with one of our members for about a half an hour over the weekend. They were considering hiring an agency to do a simple email campaign. And in hiring an agency to do a simple email campaign is like, killing an ant with a sledgehammer. You can find really incredible people on this site. It's called Upwork.com. You can find virtual paralegals. You can find legal researchers. You can find content writers, graphic designers, pretty much anything under the sun that falls into a professional category, social media managers. I mean, absolutely anyone that you can think of that would do something in a business capacity is going to be available on this site. It is the largest network of freelancers available, probably in, I know in America, but it could be in the top 5 in the world. I haven't fact-checked that, but I would venture to guess that they're definitely up there. Now, I'm sharing this with you because I want you to notice a couple things. Notice his location. His location is in Poland. We use a marketing tool called HubSpot. At How to Manage a Small Law Firm, we believe in transparency, so this is the inside of my day. As VP of Marketing, do I know how to go into HubSpot and build campaigns and optimize them and connect them to an ad manager and run reports and everything else? Yes. Do I have a million things to do? Absolutely. So hiring someone who is very proficient in HubSpot, who can go in and handle executing a campaign, getting the shell of it together, linking workflows, testing landing pages, all manner of things that, do I know how to do them? Yes. Do I have time to do them? Sometimes. Are they going to get done if I assign it to someone in 2 hours over the course of the week for $100? That's going to save me, probably 10 hours and keep all these other projects moving forward. Yes, that's the best solution for us at the stage of growth that we are right now. It also saves us the cost of hiring full-time until we are ready. So, and I can find different people for different projects. So in comparing a solution like this to something like an agency, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're just getting started and you want to build an email campaign or do drip marketing to all of the people who you met with but never actually retained you for your services, this is a great place to start. You can get marketing people to do campaigns for you, to write newsletters, to build your website, to do all kinds of update your website for anywhere from $10 all the way up to $100 an hour. Now he's 55. That's a little bit higher than what you're going to see on here normally. That's like 25 to 35. But I wanted somebody super proficient. You'll also notice that I put must be available during U.S. operating business hours. And his response, I am usually available between 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Perfect. I'm going to give you all your to-dos in the morning, and they're going to be done by my afternoon so that I can pick them up at the end of the day, finish what I need to finish, and get everything done. You also have a message board. So here at the top, you're going to notice I have the ability to invite freelancers so I can make a job public. They submit proposals as if they are trying to, win your business. They are also measured. They are measured on satisfaction. They are measured on success of jobs. So every time I mark a job or a contract complete and it pays out, I actually have like 5 things that I have to rate them on as to, everything from communication to did they finish on time, and all other manner of items. Then on the right-hand side, I can view the contract, and there's 2 different kinds of contracts. You can do hourly, and if you're doing hourly, one thing that I really like too is it actually records their screen while they work. So when they check in and they are working for you, it is recording their screen. So if they're like online shopping or whatever the case may be, you can actually go back and see that. I've only had to spot check someone's work one time in the last 4 years, and I didn't find anything. So that just goes to show that the quality is there, because they're afraid that they're going to get banned from the site and they're not going to be able to do any work. So, and one last thing on Upwork, a lot of the people that you will find on here come from very large enterprise organizations, and they just like got a travel bug or wanted to become a digital nomad, and this particular gentleman had run global campaigns for major consumer brands. And so that was a huge advantage for me because 1, I knew he knew our software, but 2, I knew that I could throw really complicated projects at him, and it was well worth the $55 an hour because he's going to jump in there and get it done. So TaskRabbit, and he's also going to use previous experience to say, hey, we can optimize it in this way. And so he and I actually have a really great relationship now, and he's increased the amount of work that he does for us by doing things like suggesting ways that we can improve. So TaskRabbit.com. TaskRabbit I consider to be the handyman on demand kind of service. So for example, moved into, a new apartment, and this was like, I think like 2 apartments ago, he came and like set up a bunch of like IKEA furniture and office equipment, and, just did a ton of stuff that I didn't have time to do. Hanging a TV on the wall, or, fixing up an office when you first move in, where there's like just a million things to do and staff is running around like crazy, helping come in for like a few hours and set up a phone system. Anything that physically needs to be done in person, TaskRabbit is a great place to look for those resources. Next, virtual paralegal services. So virtual paralegal services, and we're coming near the end of today's presentation. Virtual paralegal services, this is a network of virtual paralegals. So if you are looking for supplementary help because you got an influx of cases until you can find a full-time person, this is a great resource. You can also find virtual paralegals on Upwork, as well as legal research, people with legal research experience, legal writers, all manner of qualifications can be found there. But if you're looking specifically for virtual paralegals, I would start with this network. And then choosing a virtual assistant based off of the business impact. So internal policies, procedures, checklists. If you have not done this worksheet as to how to manage a small law firm member, you will very soon. We teach this in all of our workshops and in all of our programs. You're basically putting an X under each of the categories. So each of the 7 functional areas of a law firm are listed at the top, from left to right: marketing, sales, factory, people, physical plant, money and metrics, and then lastly you. And then you put an X where you actually have policies, procedures, checklists, templates, examples, and systems. And when you have X's in every single one of these squares, you can walk away from your law firm. For 30 days, you can go on vacation. It is a beautiful thing. So trying to fill in gaps where you don't have coverage or that you're doing everything yourself. It's a good worksheet to start with. So coming to the close of today's presentation, this is your virtual assistant button. Feel free to hit it anytime anything comes to mind. I encourage everybody to sign up for a service or to investigate virtual paralegals and to give it a go in the next 30 days, even with just a small project. Take something that you've been procrastinating on, that you hate doing or just haven't found the time to get around to, and give it a shot. If you are interested about how to manage a small law firm, the services that we provide, and how we help our members crush their revenue goals, you can find out more and schedule an appointment at howtomanageasmalllawfirm.com/webinar-appointment. I will chat this link to everyone. Thank you all so much for joining me today. That brings us to the end of our presentation. This will be recorded and added to the How to Manage a Small Law Firm public website, so feel free to share it. I will chat my email address and the appointment link to everybody right now, so that you have it. I cannot tell you how happy I am working for this organization. It's really incredible to see the changes and the progress that our members make on an ongoing basis. I'm sending you my email address. If you have any questions, please let me know. We have a few that we're going to tackle here right now. Let me just grab those. Okay, and questions. So we have, let's see, it will be shared, yes, and we will be at Legal Tech. Thank you for asking. How to Manage a Small Law Firm will be at Legal Tech, New York. I leave and join the rest of our team there on Monday. In the meantime, I'm going to be getting this presentation up on the member site as well as our public website. My email address is included, and then if you would like to make an appointment to learn more about our services and how we can help you break through your revenue goals, I am adding that and sending it to you now. There we are. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions. Talk to you soon.